Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us for another show. And we're talking Swanton Town affairs today. Happy to have on board Earl Fournier, the Swanton Selectboard Chairman, Brian Savage, the Swanton Town Administrator. Good day, gentlemen. I should know we're taping this show on Thursday, August 3rd. Boy, summer moving along here.
Yes.
Moving along. I guess let's start with the flooding issue. Franklin County certainly seemed to have been pretty lucky with the flooding of almost a month ago, July 9, 10. I mean, every day, just painful stories about, boy, the flooded out folks in, Montpelier, Johnson, Ludlow, places like that. But from Swanton, any issues, Earl?
Fortunately, we were no problems.
No problems.
No serious issues, maybe a little erosion here and there, but nothing significant.
Yeah.
We were lucky.
Boy, very lucky. Boy, the lake, of course, setting record highs every day these days, up about 3 feet above normal. I love it in a way because I keep a couple of kayaks down by Kilcare.
Yeah.
A lot easier to get into higher lake water, but gee, it's a tough situation. But boy, that does bring to mind next spring. Boy, if we have a fair amount of snow precipitation this winter, next spring could be pretty tough. Who could forget 2011?
Right.
I logged a lot of time out in West Swanton, and
Yes.
boy, the water, I mean, the road barely, Route 78 barely hung in there.
above water,
And even the
yes.
railroad tracks
Right.
became an issue with that. Anyway, hopefully nothing too crazy.
Seems to be the trend, extreme weather, and it is something that we have to plan for as a community too. I think as long as you brought that up, there is the FEMA issue. There are some properties in Swanton that are applying, to be abandoned.
Is that big, as in close to the river, just
Yes.
floodplain
Right.
issues?
Yeah.
Floodplain.
Yeah.
Floodplain issue,
Huh.
and the FEMA program now, there's 75% federal, but the state is paying the other 25%.
Wow.
So they're actually paying the total appraised
Really?
value.
So there are some folks looking to try to
We
sell
have-
their homes.
We had three
Really, three?
time. Yeah.
3 people.
Interesting.
There's still people out there who, if they'd like to apply, certainly, if you're in the flood zone, certainly do so.
Wow.
There's still time, so.
Sounds like FEMA reps have had a pretty impressive high profile in Vermont in the wake of the flooding.
Yeah.
And I guess FEMA can just help out residential people, not businesses. Is that the case? They don't deal with businesses, or am I wrong about that?
I'm not sure of all the
That's right.
details on that, Richard, but
Yeah.
from what I understand and discussions I've been seeing on the radios and reading in the paper, there's a different program apparently
Sure.
for businesses
Yeah.
than there is for residential.
Yeah.
And I know that farmers have to go through the USDA
Yeah.
Right.
instead of FEMA.
In fact, I'm just hearing Anson Tebbets on radio this morning on VMT as we speak now, preceded by David Zuckerman, the Lieutenant Governor, and a farmer himself. But yeah, farmers took it's just tough watching the stories day after day.
Yeah, very tough.
And I wonder especially downtown Montpelier. It's going to happen again. You just wonder how many of these businesses will even bother to try to come back.
Yeah.
I know it's.
And of course, Brian, you're the former veteran state legislator and stuff. You've logged plenty of time in Montpelier.
I have spent plenty of time there, as well as in Barrie. My understanding is Barrie got hit pretty hard as well.
Yeah.
But not the best place to have located the state capitol.
I guess now I hadn't heard anybody else
think
make
about
that point.
that.
That sounds like a very good point.
The point, I used to give private tours, if constituents would come down or whatever, and I give them a tour of the State House, and I usually started at the sidewalk right down the street and pointed where the high water mark was for the flood of 27.
Wow.
And then the building next door, which is occupied by the state tax department, was the old National Life headquarters.
Wow.
So apparently when National Life came to look to build a new building, they put it up where the floodwaters weren't going to hit.
Good decision. Huh?
So I always point that out to people. So yeah, it's I spent a great deal of time at the Capitol Plaza Hotel, and that's been wrecked again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame, and all the businesses there. I do feel bad for the people.
Yeah.
It's very the Hubbard Library in Montpelier had
Yep, I know that library well.
pictures. I saw that books by the thousands thousands in a pile
Right.
that are being thrown out. So it's
As a lover of books, yeah, painful to look at pictures like that.
right. It's a shame, you know, it really is. So.
Anyway, so Franklin County, Swanton fared pretty well. I guess
Right.
Fairfax got a
They
bit
got
of a hit from the
some.
Lamoille, but
Yeah.
in general, Franklin County was very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
Very fortunate.
one of the big issues that came up a while ago, the rec path, sidewalk, whatever, from MVU to the village limits is now history. Not going to happen.
At the present time, we're not going forward with the project.
I know when we last talked, Earl, you said there just didn't seem to be, I guess, as much support for it as you maybe thought, you folks thought there had been in the past. Was that the big issue, or some
Well,
landowners just didn't want to deal with the rec path going by their property?
That's part of both things are correct.
Yeah.
You know, there seemed to be a lot of concern by citizens in Swanton that, you know, maybe this sidewalk up through that intersection of the interstate and along 78 heavy traveled route was maybe not such a safe thing. There were concerns by the landowners because those are older houses, they're close to the road, there's not a lot of room between where the sidewalk would be and their front doors.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, we could have worked around that, but there just didn't seem to be the use there to justify continuing on, and probably for sure it was going to cost more than what the original plan said because it was done so long ago. The scoping study started in 2000, was it done 16 or 17?
Yeah, was that right? A while ago.
Yeah, it was
It's
a
been a
while.
while.
Yeah. And we have a lot of other things to concentrate on.
Yeah, you got a few other things going on.
Yes.
Did the MVU, can I assume, did the MVU board, school board, of course you're a former longtime MVU, did they go on record saying, yeah, great idea, we favor this, or did they?
Well, that was another issue that
Yeah.
came up, that they're not in any position right now to do anything to extend out of their yard to the sidewalk. Then the discussion came that maybe we'd be better off to use frontage road and go up the back entrance, which is over the years has seen more use and probably is going to, you know, be upgraded in the future for more use too by MVU. But right now they're not in a position to do anything to on their part
Wow.
to connect to that sidewalk. So it seemed like, you know, we were going to build almost a sidewalk to nowhere to some extent.
Oh.
And that's not to say that this won't happen in the future now. And a lot of, you know, the people that were for it, are upset. And, you know, I understand where they're coming from because, you know, being able to access things with something other than a car is probably going to be a big part of the future, I'm sure. But right now, it doesn't seem like the right time. And what has been done, if we bring this project forward in the future, you know, we've already got a head start on it. So we haven't really wasted the money that we spent because we're going to have to pay the state back $71,000.
I was going to ask you that, 71,000?
$71,000. We have the money because money has been put aside for our share of the cost.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have to raise new taxes to do that. And then we'll have all the surveys and everything that's been done up to this point. Because right now we're in a position to go for right-of-way. You know, that much work has been done. We know everything's been identified, and we know. So we can go forward with this in the future. But for now, it is done.
Interesting.
You know.
And again, obviously, some people have reacted negatively.
Yes.
Did you get a lot of negative reaction to that decision?
No, I think we got more positive reaction.
Interesting.
You know, but that's if you look at the area, it doesn't seem like an ideal place for a sidewalk because of all the traffic and stuff and the interchanges that's going on there.
Was that
And
a unanimous decision by the select board to bag the project for now anyway?
It was unanimous. Nicole Draper, you know, felt that we should still go forward with it. So it was, you know, near unanimous, but not everybody.
Interesting. Brian, you're getting some reaction to this, pro and con, I assume, in your position, or select board members get more than you probably?
Probably the select board members get more than I do. I've had really no one's was opposed to the decision. Some people felt good that the decision was made. And one of the concerns that I had with it was if we went through and did this work, we don't know what the future is going to hold for Route 78 itself there. With the
good old
development
Route
of the
78.
airport.
With some work expected to be done on Route 78 one of these years, right?
Well, up there, there's going to be an increase in traffic if development plans for the airport are changed. Where the, school the size, I've traveled around the state quite a bit, and I can never get over the fact that there's no turn lanes going into MVU's driveway, and most other schools have them.
That's a good point. That would seem to be a good thing to have.
So that coupled with, I know they're looking at the intersection of exit 21 and Route 78, and talking about that. So I mean, this is all. We don't know what the future would bring, and if we had a sidewalk just put in, and they said, "Well, we're going to have to move that," that's. It was a concern. I think they need to come up with a bigger plan.
Anyway, so that's the story with that for now anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
You mentioned Nicole Draper, of course, the Community Rec Center just happens to come to that. That sounds like the biggest project you're dealing with at this point, or you tell me, but what's the status with that now, Earl?
I would say that the priority right now is the rec center.
Yeah.
To try to get a proposal ready. And something that we can all agree on. Right now, there are some differences of opinion between what was originally presented to the board. The feasibility study is going forward. We expect to have that
Next month.
Oh, yeah.
And at that point in time, we're going to schedule a public hearing.
Is there a different site now? Is that did I take?
We did do our due diligence, so to speak, to find out if there were other opportunities in Swanton. And at this point in time, what the responses we got to that, there's nothing that really is.
Really.
No, really.
So I think we're going to be concentrating on where the fields are now.
And that's town-owned land. That's land.
Village-owned land.
Sorry, village-owned land.
Yeah. But it would, but the village is, on board with using it for that reason, and whatever expansion or buildings take place there is okay, would be okay. There's no opposition from the village trustees, obviously, to this, because they understand the importance of recreation.
Sounds like village manager Bill Sheets has given you folks a little help on this too.
Yeah.
Is that the
Yes, yes, he has. Right. We've been trying to work together, especially Brian and Bill.
Yeah.
Because it is an important issue for the community,
Sure.
and we want to come up with a plan that is something that I don't want to get in a situation where 10 or 15 years down the road we say, "Wish we did this," and that. And I think it needs a little more public input into the process too, and.
I think you've said this would be the first bond issue when it comes to presumably a bond issue, Swanton's first bond issue.
Yeah, and we after our meeting last night with the rec committee members, we're going to have another meeting with them on the 22nd to discuss a lot of the stuff that they had put together previously. They had looked at some different options on that site and some different sites too, so we can get an idea of what has transpired and take a look at that. Maybe we can agree on something at that point in time, but I think we're going to need some public input before a final proposal is made.
No, it's a huge issue. I'm sure there's some frustration on the part of folks who just really want to move ahead with this.
Yes, they want to move ahead with this. In the present location that's being proposed, there's a lot of people that have concerns with that, because the access would be off Jewett Street, and there's some issues there. But we're going to look into that. What possibilities, if we can make improvements on Jewett Street, maybe possibly divert the Shelburne Limestone traffic to the other end where the new road is. But that's going to, we got to have that discussion with Shelburne Limestone.
What, again,
And
a rough,
once we know that, then we can, that's another option that's on the table as maybe, you know.
what do you hope to get out of the feasibility study?
Well, we're gonna know hopefully know what the impact is gonna be on the tax rate
Okay.
for the building and operation.
Is there I think you mentioned, is there a rough price tag now? It's several mil, I think you've mentioned.
We were
that
talking, I believe the last one was
3.6.
3.6?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
That's a fair amount of buck. And some of that money's, you have some of that money now.
We have
correct?
600 appropriated of the ARPA money for
Okay.
this project, 600,000.
Okay. Interesting. Boy, big project. I've asked you before about a possible LOT, local option tax, which of course St. Albans City and town have gone that route. Boy, it sounds like might not be a bad idea. Is that getting some attention or not?
It is getting attention. I
Yeah.
mean, it comes up in discussions here and there. It's going to happen at some point in time.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at things and what we need for revenue, and because property taxes are probably not equitable across the board,
Yeah.
and because education relies so heavily on the property tax. That affects what we can do because, you know, even if our tax rate goes up a couple
Sure.
cents, but then if the education side goes up 4 or 5.
And tax bills, for
Yeah.
the record, of course, about good 2/3, 3/4 are on the education side as opposed to the municipal side.
So we may, you know, having another source of income
Yeah.
to support local things, municipal things, such as rec centers, and I know that's a big part of what St. Albans Town and St. Albans City has used that money for.
No, boy, St. Albans Town, yeah, they're funding the new town hall with that. They funded the new public works garage. St. Albans City, the community swimming pool,
Yeah.
with all LOT money with bond issues and stuff.
So we're going to have to definitely give it serious consideration.
Yeah.
One of the concerns that we hear from at least local business people, and it's a legitimate one, is right now we do have some vacant buildings in our downtown area. You know, and if these businesses if we can get businesses in there and established and working, we don't want to put ourselves at a competitive disadvantage to attracting people to Swanton
Sure.
right now. And I don't see it as being that, but it is one thing that a business owner is going to look at, you know, as a possibility. So, but I do see it happening in the future.
Yeah, Brian, were you? How long has the local option tax been on the books in Vermont? Were you in the legislature when that was adopted, or does that go back?
Actually, it was prior to my being in the legislature.
right.
But it was getting on to about 15 or I would say close to 20 years now
right.
that they allowed it.
Huh.
Of course, it still takes legislative approval. It takes local approval, then it has to go to the legislature to approve each town individually.
Has the legislature, do you know, have they ever not approved a town doing that after the town approved it?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that right? Really?
If you don't have a charter,
Oh,
Right,
really?
but they worked around that.
they
Like
did pass that.
We don't have a charter, but you can just say somehow there is a way of doing it when
I know
town
South
doesn't have a
Hero got
charter.
into an
Yeah.
issue there.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that would be number one. We'd have to check to see
Yes.
if it would be a problem.
Of course, the state loves this. The state picks up, 30% of
Right.
this revenue.
That's right.
I'm sure the state would go.
But my understanding is that when I brought up about the charter when I was down there, and somebody said, "Well, we can make it. A charter can just be a single paragraph."
Yeah.
You know, that was an attorney saying that. So
Interesting. So this is so the feasibility study. You'll have results on that in the not too distant future.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm hoping that we can get the public hearing going sometime in September. Is what I really.
I think you mentioned before. Are we talking next town meeting? Is that when you'd like to think there would be a bond vote on this? Or
Possible. I mean,
that'd be the earliest.
that would
time.
be a very aggressive schedule, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess if you didn't make that, I guess the November election would come to
Yes.
mind.
Yeah. That's another possibility there too. You know, we're going to keep working, pushing this forward. It's one of the top. It is a top priority right now for the town and the board.
But just trying to nail down just the scope of this rec center, how big, I mean, the cost, just some basic issues here.
And then we got to take a look at too how this is going to overall. You know, we're talking about a master plan. you know, because we do have the rail trails, especially the LVRT.
Well, the LVRT took a hit, unfortunately,
You know,
from the
and
flooding.
so we got to figure out how, you know, how this is all going to fit into recreation in Swanton, and how, you know, possibly how we can take advantage of, you know, of all this. And, you know, I think a lot of the planning will go around where this rec/community center ends finally being how that's proposed, and then we'll go forward with a plan to adopt other land. We also have that 4th Street property that, you know, the majority of residents in
The old
Swan
highway garage site by the LM school.
wanted to maintain that for recreational uses, so we gotta, you know, that's gotta be part of the plan too.
Well, you have a lot of resources, not to mention the Refuge with its great walking trails, but a lot of references. And is the community rec center, again, it's a slow process, you're trying to get more info?
Yep.
Does that become a fairly contentious issue? I mean, there are obviously some folks who want to, you know, who want to move on that as soon as possible. Is that just
There is a lot of passion there, Richard.
A lot of passion, good way to put it. A lot of passion.
But it's, you know, everybody it's for the right reason.
Yeah.
And we're going to come up with some kind of a proposal for sure that we all going to agree on at some point in time, even though maybe not everybody's going to be happy with it. And then, you know, this feasibility study is going to give us a better idea of what is really affordable, and it might give us a better idea of what kind of funding sources we may have to seek. Maybe we may not be able to do it totally on a bond. We may have to bring in other grant funding. And that, you know, this is what those numbers are going to help us determine. And
there are potentially other funding sources, I assume, for something like this.
I believe there.
Brian, you spent some of your time on that.
It takes some work, but there's probably some potential funds out there that we have to research and find, and we certainly can. We would certainly be applying for them.
Or maybe a phone call or two to my friend Heidi Bridge-Valenta. Of course, Heidi, the former Highgate Town Administrator, hired by Swanton Village in part to kind of focus on trying to get grants and stuff.
That's right.
So, well, that's a big issue. It sounds like that's kind of the biggest issue on your plate at this point. Huh?
It is right now, yes, because of, you know, we got to get it moving. You know, keep it moving and come up with eventually decisions are going to have to be made of what we need to what we can do.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we can do everything that people want. You know, maybe possible we may end up having to take steps to get there. You know, to get to what we want in the end. But you know, the board is committed to this project.
Yeah.
Getting something done, because it's clear to everybody that, and there's no argument here, no difference of opinion, the present facility is woefully inadequate for the amount of participation that we have from the community and rec programs. It's in a, you know, Nicole Draper, she is a member of the select board. You know, so some people might think there might be a conflict of interest there.
But also, what, the town's rec director? Is
yes,
that
and she's been very aggressive about programs, and you know, people have been responding.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing for our kids, you know, especially kids today. They need other outlets than running on the street by themselves, playing on their phones.
Yeah, no, rec's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And geez, speaking of which, again, Lamoille Valley Rail Trail took a real hit in some places from the flooding. Of course, the governor, Senator Sanders, are going to be up here on July 15th, and the governor was going to bike the whole trail, and that's obviously delayed, put off. But
and we were very disappointed that happened.
Yeah, it sounded like a cool event.
Yeah, it was, and you know, hopefully it's going to get. We're going to have it in the future.
Yeah, hopefully it'll come back. And meanwhile, are you still pondering exactly what to do on the Swanton end of the LVRT?
Well, we do have our grant, and I guess you could explain, because he's been working in that.
So what's planned for that, Brian?
The town of Swanton did receive a grant to develop the trailhead of the LVRT. And former select board member Joel Clark has been pretty instrumental in the development of the site, and that area is where the kickoff is going to take place on that weekend. So it would allow it would be adjacent to Robin Hood Drive. It would be allowing significant parking space for probably, I don't have the exact figures, but probably 15 vehicles or so parking. There would be some sort of a pavilion to get in out of the hot sun and shade. There would be some.
Right, we're talking restrooms there?
Well, not. They would be portalettes, but there would probably be certainly drinking facilities to get water, because it is near the village water line. So it's and a bike repair station would be there, kiosk for information. So we're pretty excited about it. And other directions. And we're trying to get to continue. I mean, the LVRT stops at that point, or starts,
But
whichever
of course,
way
then
you
you
look
have
at it.
the Dick Thompson
Yeah.
rec path.
And you go across Robin Hood Drive, and you're on the Dick Thompson rec path.
Right.
So we want to have kiosk and direction signs.
And
to
is
go
that right there? Do they actually connect? Is there any
Yeah.
gap
Yeah.
between?
Just the street.
Just the
Just
road.
the street, just the road.
Robin
Yeah.
Hood Drive. That's
Yeah.
it.
So get some directional signage on that to direct people how to get from that point on the Dick Thompson Trail to get either downtown, the Abnaki Museum, cross the river, go to the Ronald Kilburn
Railroad
Train Museum,
Museum.
and somehow, this is all pinging on Route 78 reconstruction, get to the wildlife refuge.
Yeah, as we've talked about, of course, I'd like some time out in West Swanton myself, and boy, I still get out there.
Yeah.
Boy, when I see a bike rider on Route 78 out that way,
Right.
I just cringe. Tough enough for traffic, but ideally, boy, if you could ever pull something off to get bikers out to the refuge too.
Well, I just would like to add this to the conversation
Yeah.
because I didn't consider it, but our representative brought up the idea that, I mean, that there is a rail line that goes through the refuge.
There is.
Yeah.
Still used.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the
Yeah.
Vermonter. I'd kill if I lived long enough to see the Amtrak Vermonter
Right.
be using that again to get people like me to Montreal.
Wow.
But I may be dreaming. Doesn't
but
and is there any movement on that issue? Whenever I,
I haven't
happen to
heard
see,
of any since I left the legislature.
Sorry,
Anyways, you know, if that rail, if we were able to do something on that,
yeah,
we could bypass 78 and still get, you know, down into at least the West Swanton part of the refuge fairly easy.
Yeah.
And then on the other end, the 78, where the old refuge headquarters would be, I mean, it's not so bad to ride a bike to that point.
yeah,
You know, it's after that's when it gets, you know, pretty scary.
yeah.
So, you know, that might be a
It'd
possibility.
be possible.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I mean, talk about an incredible network if you
Yeah.
could go from St. Jay into Swanton and then make it out
Make
to
it
the
out to the refuge
refuge. Of course,
headquarters.
there's a nice rec path on the other side in Alberg that
Yeah.
I haven't been on for a while,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
an old rail
Right,
line there.
right. The same one, actually.
Same one, I guess.
Same one. I was part of it at one time. So, you know, there are some possibilities there, and we do feel that refuge is a resource that, you know, could be of a lot more benefit to Swanton.
Yeah.
You know,
Boy, money-wise, you don't get, and we've talked about that before. Is there a bit of some pilot money from the refuge? You
There
get a
is
few bucks?
There is pilot money, but not
Not a lot of bucks.
not a lot. I mean, but they've been good over the years to the community. Certainly a draw to the community.
Yeah, for sure. It's a
There is the
tremendous
pilot,
resource.
the pilot funds, and back in my days as the village trustee and the fire commissioner, they provided grants to provide for wildland firefighting gear
Oh, yeah.
and equipment, and that, of course, be used any place where it would be needed, but obviously they got a lot of territory there that could unfortunately, and it has in the past, caught fire.
Yeah.
So that they're very good that way over the years.
Yeah, I remember the Friends of the Missisquoi National Wildlife Refuge. You get their, I think, quarterly newsletters, but boy, staffing sounds like their staffing is pretty bare bones.
Yeah.
I think what Mr. Sturm, the refuge manager, said, we could probably use another like 5 people or so, but
yeah, the federal, they haven't been funded the way they would like to be funded, so but.
Although at least they got that nice new headquarters.
They do
got
have
a pretty nice headquarters out there. Yeah.
But I believe if the area was, if there was more use or more public viewing that area, I think you probably would see some expansion, at least in terms of personnel for the refuge, and it is a beautiful area.
Yeah.
And, it's preserved, and as far as I'm concerned, it should be.
Yeah.
We can't really lose those type of massive wetlands. They're very important for the environment, and the wildlife there is, quite spectacular, especially for waterfowl. So, and a lot of people today, especially the younger generations, I see it myself when I'm out and about. I do get a chance to work next to some of these rail trails and hayfields, and you see a lot of families riding their bikes down through there. So it's, there's a lot of potential there, and we're going to keep working on that too.
Route 78 has come up a few times already on the show. Have we got any timeline from V-Trans about the Route 78 work, whatever that's likely to entail? Or
I received, about 3 weeks ago, I've received the easements for the town of Swanton to sign off on for the rights of way. That would be wherever a road connects, intersection, as well as the land that this would be for all property owners, but for the town, it's the intersections of the various roads, as well as other town property, which in this case is Riverside Cemetery. So we got those easements, and they're talking about having it finished by 2027. There was an error in the easements that I uncovered, and I notified them. So they said, "Don't do anything. Send it all back." And so we're waiting. So they're getting the easements out there. So that's a step in the right direction. 2027 seems like a long ways away. It's but at least they're working on getting easements put in place.
Earl, I think you mentioned before, I think you might have mentioned Tim Smith, Franklin County Industrial Development Corp. Exec Director, Mayor of St. Albans, with the highway work. Hopefully, I guess it is going on north of the border.
Yes,
yeah, very much so.
But I guess the hope is whenever that's completed and coming right in near the border at Highgate Springs, that might ease truck traffic a bit on Route 78. That's a hope anyway.
That's what they have reported. Tim did say that they expect a 30% reduction on 78 once that new road is done. That remains to be seen. Right. But a 30% reduction, there's still going to be a lot of heavy traffic on that road.
Yeah, for sure. And what is it now? The traffic going through Swanton is about 17% truck traffic, which is well above the average for. And I forget about that issue until I'm in Swanton Village and just kind of on the village green or something, and it just is it's unreal.
I could give you some more stories of discussions I had with.
I bet you could.
With other legislators who complain about truck traffic in their communities.
Is that right? What do you think? Swanton is about the toughest place in the state, worst place in the state for that, or?
I would think so. The one in town that comes to mind, and they do have a very bad curve, is Woodstock, the entrance to the village of Woodstock, but not. their reps were showing us videos of how, several tractor trailers would actually have to go out on the other side of the road to make the turn.
Nothing Swanton can
Swanton
relate to or
is
anything.
every tractor trailer has to go on the other side of the road, and I told them that. I'd say we probably are right up there with the most severe 18-wheeler traffic.
So maybe some hope for the future. Again,
Yes.
There's been talk of, I've been around for a while. Seems like I remember hearing bypass talk here and there for a while, but
Yeah,
that's
but I don't.
not
I don't.
not
No.
happening.
In this day and age, bypass probably never going to happen.
There's also in Western New York, and I was getting stuff on this, but I figured, well, it'll never happen in Vermont. Interstate 98, which will run from it's a proposed interstate route to run from Watertown, New York, and come across and meet with Interstate 89 in Swanton.
Interesting.
They would be sending me all this. New York was sending me all the stuff about it, and of course I'm like, well, I'll be long gone by the time it ever comes to Vermont. So
Interstate 98, huh?
98,
That's right.
And
that
they
makes
were
me
pushing
think of,
hard.
weren't they talking about a road across northern New England? It's a little tough to get from here to there if you're going to Maine or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Wasn't there long ago talk about
a rooftop
rooftop
highway,
highway.
which this may be, some part of it. I don't know. But
Interesting.
I was invited to go out someplace in, I don't know, Buffalo or someplace to hear all about it, or
Really?
Watertown.
As in fairly recently?
Well, 3 or 4 years ago,
Really?
yeah, but I knew there would be no chance of the state paying my expenses,
Interesting.
so I didn't go. But I haven't heard any more. But they seem to be pushing it pretty hard in New York.
Oh, really? Interesting.
But I haven't heard anything further.
It is an economic corridor.
Yeah.
Right across that Route 11 across northern New York, and then you end up on 78 to connect on to 89 and head south. So we're going to have to probably learn to live with some of this stuff, but we can make it better and maybe take advantage of it. Maybe that makes Swanton in this area more attractive to manufacturing and industries because we're on that corridor.
Not to mention, just about on the border and stuff.
That's right. We're just about on the border. So, there's disadvantages, but there are advantages too, So we're going to have to try to make the best of the situation. Sometimes that's all you really can do.
Yeah.
Because I don't see a big change. I don't see bypasses going in, because of all the environmental issues and the costs.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the folks, if there was a bypass, I'm sure the folks who are living on the bypass would be real happy to have all that truck traffic.
Yeah.
But
That's the other
it doesn't sound like it's going to happen. If the rec center, community center project's the biggest on the town's plate right now, what's after that? Earl?
Well, one of the things I like that we're keeping a track on, and we have we've actually got something going, and this is the Southern Growth District area. And we reported
That's
that
by exit 20.
right here.
By exit.
Right here,
Right
on the
right
other
here.
side of the interstate.
Sorry, right here.
Yeah.
'Cause there's been you've given some attention to the goings on around exit 22, bordering St. Albans town.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're talking exit 21 now.
Yeah. Because the state is putting a new garage, or proposing a new garage for the state highway department on that property over here. They purchased 18 acres.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're going before the DRB at their next meeting.
Yeah.
So, that's development is starting. So it's an area that we have planned as part of our planning, for future growth. And one of the big concerns has been, and it's been there for a long time, that's Bushy Road 207 intersection. Not a very safe one. So the state's well aware of the issues there. But we did, with the regional planning, they've approved a scoping study to address that intersection. That's one step that's going to take place. And then we're still, eventually going to have to put together some kind of conceptual master plan for what the area could potentially look like. And then we see it as a combination of hopefully industries, maybe hopefully green industries, and housing at a denser scale, because hopefully there'll be services there, water and sewer, so that, and if it's at a denser scale, it'll hopefully be more affordable, so that young people in this area have an affordable place to live, because housing is, we all know housing is an issue.
Yeah, sounds like a big issue everywhere, pretty much.
Yeah.
Legislature, of course, jumped into that a bit, and they did. I think there was a law enacted. I forget if the governor signed it or let it become law without a signature. But duplexes, much easier now to have
Yeah.
Right.
duplexes in municipalities, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Tim Smith, Mayor Tim Smith wasn't real fond of that.
Well, it would have been a tough one for me if I had been there, because I understand there's a need for housing. I mean,
Yeah.
people have to have a decent place to live at an affordable cost. But at the same time, I don't think the state should be telling local municipalities what they should be doing in their zoning regs, and so that's where I was a little conflicted on that one.
And as long as we're on the
And speaking of zoning,
on the topic, we almost have our new town plan approved. We have one more meeting on the 22nd. We've had the planning commission's held their meetings. We've had one meeting. Most of the reaction to the town plan that's being proposed has been positive. It's certainly a much more readable document than what we had before, because it's the other ones like this is when, that's going to get approved. And the next step, and the board has already approved the money, is to do a major update of our zoning bylaws. Some of it is because of the changes that the state has imposed on us. But there are other things in there too that we're going to be looking at, that we're hoping to make our zoning more efficient and maybe a little bit more common sense in the process, and for what's going on today and what needs to go on in the future, we don't want local zoning to be a hindrance. We have enough issues like Act 250 if you've got a major development that they have to go through, and in our town plan, especially as it pertains to the Southern Growth District, the regional plan, they just approved their plan too, which I'm sure you're aware of, the Regional Planning Commission. It's insane, so everybody, the planning for the future, everybody agrees that this is a area that should have growth, because it's available. One thing, it's the only area in Swanton that you really can do it.
really.
Because there's over, I think the estimate is around 50% of the land in Swanton is either owned by the federal government or conserved through the land trust or some other conservation.
What other village town relations? Any recent meetings? Sounds like the village and town do pretty well relation wise. Any joint meetings? I know there used to be joint meetings, Earl.
Well, they're gonna be invited on the 22nd.
On the
Is that right?
22nd, right? Because we want to discuss they should be there for the municipal plan anyhow.
Yes.
But we also are going to be discussing the rec center, because we don't feel that the municipal plan will take that long that evening, and we start at 6 o'clock, so we can fit in one other issue. That'll be fine. And so they're coming along with the rec committee, and so that we can keep them involved in that loop. Because it's their property is one of the sites being looked at, and so the things are going pretty well.
And we're going to have to, because I'm sure you're aware, there's proposal for a new police
Indeed, we
facility.
talked to the village manager about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it sounds like they're moving on that. Yeah, the
Yeah.
current Swanton Village PD, I've been in there a few times.
And now-
Fortunately, not for any nefarious reasons, but going back to Mike McCarthy. But
Yeah.
boy, talk about a tiny PD.
Tiny.
So it sounds like one of the big issues that the village is pushing.
Yeah, and so, you know, we're going to have to work together on that. You know, the town doesn't, you know, our reliance, most of our police protection is on the state police. And, you know, the state police is having issues with staff and everything
sure.
else. So, you know, if we're going to have some kind of permanent police protection in the town, the best opportunity I can see is that, you know, there's some kind of, we work with the village.
Of course, you're getting, what, tell me if I'm wrong, 8 hours a
Yeah,
day
8
from
hours.
Swanton
Yeah.
Village PD
Yeah,
now.
5 days a week, but that's, you know.
Five days a week.
Seven
Seven,
days.
oh, 7
Sorry,
days.
7 days a
Excuse
week.
me.
And I assume you'd love to see that kick up, but we're talking, obviously, money comes into play.
Money comes into play.
I mean,
but,
ideally, you'd like to get more than 8 hours a day, I assume?
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, people, because if you call state police, it could be the next day before they get there, just because they don't have the personnel to do
Yeah.
it. I think the situation last winter in Elberg is a clear example of that. It took over an hour for anybody to actually show up.
Oh, for that, for
Yeah,
the
when they had
fatal
that incident,
shooting
right.
incident. Wow.
Right, you know. Now, generally, so, you know, and the people of Swan, you know, if they want to have some kind of police protection that's going to be there and that, you know, we can count on, I believe we're going to have to do something with the Swan Village Police Department. We're going to have to
Yeah.
join forces in some way, you know, which is going to lead to some cost, for sure, a lot more than what we've been paying. And we're going to have to look at them numbers, but, you know, it's something that we have to, as a board, we need to present this issue to the people of Swan.
Interesting.
And if they want this, then, because if we don't, we're probably going to miss an opportunity.
Of course, St. Albans City and St. Albans Town kind of going that route with the,
Yeah.
of course, City PD will be retaking command, patrol coverage in the town about 11 months
Yeah,
hence, but
yeah.
yeah, boy, again, just gets back to staffing shortages. I think Bill Sheets, the Swanton Village manager, former longtime VSP.
Right.
Boy, I think I might be using the wrong figure, but just statewide, or whoever told me, just the number of troopers that they're down statewide is
Yes.
staggering.
It's staggering. They're not a large force to begin with.
Right,
and
right.
And he
They
brought that
lost.
number up at our meeting.
Is it something like 60, whatever the number is?
60
but,
vacancies.
well, that's pretty
And they
scary.
have
Pretty scary.
Like
Yeah, that's
300, it was a little over 300, I believe, slots, and 60, and it's a significant number.
Wow.
Because they're all, you know, there's retirements keep coming up, and then just not enough people going into into the academy.
Swanton Town, how are you doing staffing? When a vacancy comes up, are you able to fill that? Any staffing issues with the town?
Fortunately, not. No,
Yeah.
we've been able to fill. In the last year, we had a vacancy in the highway department. We were able to fill, and then we had an opening in the office for the administrative assistant, a full-time position, which is a new position.
Huh.
And we were able to fill that. And we have a part-time, this is actually an elected position, but the lister position, Jim Pratt, longtime lister, is going to be retiring. And so we've advertised so that the select board can appoint somebody to the position, and they will have to run for election next March. So that's really the only opening we have now, if you want to call that an opening. Technically it is, but it's also an elected position. But we've had some interest in it, and so we've been very lucky. We've been very low turnover, and we did have somebody. We had an individual that we've been able to get. There's a when I first started.
And Brian, you've been on board now for how long?
Well, it'll be 2 years in December.
No, coming up on 2 years.
But when I first started back then, the state of Vermont total, not just between the municipalities and the state highway department, were short 140 snowplow drivers.
Is that 140?
140.
Wow.
So I think we were doing pretty well, holding our breath that everybody stayed where they are. Yeah, a significant amount, and that was it certainly got everybody's attention.
Swanton, do you think I'd remember this calendar or fiscal year for the town of Swanton?
Calendar.
That's what I would have guessed. With a lot of folks going over to fiscal, so about a little over halfway through the year. How you doing financially for the town halfway through calendar 2023?
We're in good
We're
shape.
doing okay. Yeah.
We spent a little bit more on paving than what we budgeted for, but we're gonna, we
I'm sure
haven't had
inflation never comes into play here.
that is an issue. I'm glad you brought that up because, and I talked a little bit about this at the meeting last night. We're kind of getting behind on keeping our pavement up to date.
Yeah. Ideally,
simply because the cost of pavement has gone up so high. And we've got a couple of projects one project in particular that we're going to have to do at some point in time, and the sooner the better. And we may have to borrow some money to get that done, so that we don't get behind so much.
Has there been some paving going on already this
it's
summer?
all done.
It's all done,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, it's all done.
Ideally, you like to repave roads, whatever, like every 10, 15 years? Or
It depends on the condition of the road, but you're going to be into that. Some roads can go longer, some need more repair. But Swan Hill is an area that has been it needs to be taken care of. We have a dangerous curve down a steep grade that has caused problems in the past for our highway department. It's quite a ways to go up there. When I'm going to talk
So
with
this is Swanton Hill?
Swan Hill. It's off French Hill Road.
Okay.
And you have to drive out of Swanton to get to it.
Really?
Right.
Interesting.
You can't get there from here type scenario.
But one of the possibilities, if we can get this road upgraded and in decent shape, is that we might be able to swap with one of the other communities that are bordering up there, St. Albans Town and Fairfield, because they have other roads that they have to go out of the way for. And and over time, and it's probably the payback wouldn't be that great on for the amount of money it's going to take to get the road in a reasonable condition. But you're going to be saving some money every winter by not having to travel if we can make some kind of agreement. The present condition of the road, it's not going to happen. Nobody's going to touch that road. But if we upgrade it, I believe that there would be interest by the other communities, because it would be a savings for them if we were doing, because they're in the same situation. But it's a ways to get there, from Swan.
Boy, I've been away. Yeah, it's been a while since I don't get up to that neighborhood too much.
You take the Pond Road, then you got to turn off the Pond Road, and it takes a while to get there.
Suffice for me to say, I've been to that place in the past. Well, since I've started, I've been up in that neighborhood more than I ever have been in my life before that.
Really? Even when you were trying to get elected or re-elected to the legislature.
I'd go up there and get lost and find out, thinking I was in...
You'd be in the wrong, you weren't in Swanton anymore.
Yeah, I'd say, well, okay, when you find out you're in Fairfield. I was just in Swanton a minute ago. So, yeah, it's...
and there's not a lot of houses up there, okay?
Isn't.
I mean, it's you can't justify it by the number of residents, but the thing is, we are obligated to maintain that road. We can't close the road. And it is a safety issue for our highway department there, and it's been there for a long time, but, nobody's been able to really get anything done for numerous reasons, I guess, but I guess it's just because nobody really said we're going to do it.
Yeah, well, St. Albans Town certainly on their side, on the French Hill Road side, they've certainly had plenty of issues with French Hill Road for themselves.
Yeah, they've had to do a lot of...
As Earl has mentioned, it's a very dangerous... We have concerns for our drivers, who are all well experienced.
Not to mention everybody else.
Everybody else, exactly. And that, there are people that live there that may have some furniture delivered or something, and so you get a not as experienced truck driver in the winter, and well, it could be a recipe for disaster.
And then, I mean, there's a possibility at some point in time you're going to need to have emergency vehicles going to need to go up there, and under those kind of conditions.
I've been up that way. Yeah.
It's not the best situation. No. So, there's going to be, we're going to work on that. We're going to try to get some costs, get the numbers together, and I think we'll have to probably look at some kind of financing that, so we not to over impact the tax rate. And the other thing, we'd be able to keep up at least what we're doing now for paving. So we don't get behind more, because you can get behind with the price of pavement right now. 3 or 4 years, we could be $500,000 behind.
Wow. But paving's done, you're done for the summer.
Yeah, and so that highway budget looks like it's good. The general budget, we haven't had any unexpected things.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Good to not get unexpected things.
And we kind of got spoiled here a little bit with that ARPA money.
And has that all been allocated?
Not yet.
No.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot left. But when I say we've been spoiled, because we have put a lot of money into the library.
Okay.
And we've got more work to do there. And very fortunately, we've had this ARPA money to use. We didn't have to raise it through taxes. So hopefully, when this all gets done at the library, we'll have it secure, and it won't have to spend a lot of money again, in the near future.
And what work are we talking about at the library?
Well, we're talking about furnaces.
Right.
Oh, really?
Elevator.
Yeah, we've had.
Go ahead, Brian. Give them
We replaced the HVAC, both the furnaces as well as the compressors, except for one compressor. Or condenser. We've had a problem with the sub pump in the elevator shaft, so that's been addressed. But every time that you have work done in the elevator or in the elevator shaft, you have to have an elevator tech plus the person's, in this case, was a plumber.
Really?
Because they're working under the elevator.
Wow.
So that by law, they have to have an elevator tech there.
Yeah.
So those people don't work cheap.
Right.
We've got the heavy rains that we've had. There's been some basement situations with water coming into the basement in the old part of the building.
And that's been a drag because you have some meetings, right? Some groups meeting.
Well, we have
Historical Society?
the Historical Society that has items down there.
And that's a separate issue.
Yeah. So we've got that, and we've also put a new roof on the addition this year.
Wow.
And repaired the few spots on the existing slate roof on the original building. So we've had, and we've got probably some more work to be done.
Yeah, we got to address that water issue. We got to address the icing issue on the roof. We're trying to come up with a plan of how to get it done so it's a permanent fix. It's very important building. The library again is sort of like is getting a lot more use than it used to. You have a librarian now is very aggressive, and people are responding to it, and it's a good thing. But the building needs to be taken care of, and we've been fortunate that we had that ARPA money because. You're looking at, we're probably going to have at least 150,000, if not more, in here by the time we get done.
Yeah, it sounds easy to believe from what you're saying.
Yeah.
Interesting. Down to under 2 minutes. Anything you want to quickly get into that we haven't talked about, Earl?
Well, first thing I want to say, last night we had a full house.
Full house.
Full house on.
Full house at our meeting.
Really?
People.
Mostly community center, rec center.
Yeah,
related?
rec center, the Historical Society, the library, because we did put together a memorandum of understanding between those two groups and we also started the process of finding a better space for the Historical Society.
Okay.
They have a lot of really unique stuff downstairs in that cellar, but it's some people know it's there, some people don't. It's not a long term, and even though it's been there for quite a few years, but there's we're hoping we can find a better opportunity for the Historical Society to have that in a permanent home.
What about the Railroad Museum, the Ronald Kilburn Railroad? Wouldn't
That is, that's going to be part of the discussion, but we need to look at, the community as a whole, the Historical Society board does, and come and they've agreed to do that, and then present this stuff to the select board. So we keep working. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but we need a permanent home for the Historical Society that's visible.
On that note, we'll leave it right there, and good luck with that initiative and others. But many thanks to Earl Fournier, the Swanton Select Board Chairman, Brian Savage, the Swanton Town Administrator. Thanks for your time. A lot of stuff going on. Good luck with everything going on in Swanton.
Well, I want to thank you, Richard, for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah, good to see you. See you again. And thanks to producer Alan Cunningham. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. Thanks a lot for watching us here on Northwest Access TV. See you next time.